Hello and welcome to Flux Motorsport's coverage of the Touring Car Championship, Season 3 in 2021, Season 5 overall. We kick off a brand new season of action here today at Brands Hatch on the short 1.2 mile circuit, which will keep all of our drivers busy behind the wheel. I'm Redders, and joining me this evening in the commentary booth a little bit later will be Carling Hicks. It's been a little while since these drivers last took part in our championships, and with this new season upon us, we do have to question a couple of things. Number one, have you missed the action? I know I have. And B, who do we think is going to jump straight out of the box and be ready for the challenge of Brands Hatch? If you're new to Flux Motorsport and wondering how these events work, it's pretty simple. We hold a 20-minute qualifying session which is currently underway, and then this is followed up by a 45-minute race. There's a point for pole position, a point for the fastest lap in the race, and 35 points on offer to the race winner. So 37 points up for grabs in each of the next 8 weeks of racing. And this is looking a little bit different, isn't it? Especially if you are a regular of Flux Motorsport and you're wondering, Thursday evening action? These aren't the GT1s. No, we're changing things up a little bit here on Flux Motorsport. The touring cars are here, and just to make it even more interesting, the defending champion in this series, Linga Bazinga, is not actually a part of the series. He's not here, so that it's all open and all up for grabs as we start another season here on Flux Motorsport. But if you have been around on our Thursdays and have watched the GT1 series, a couple of names that you'll see out here on track you may recognise, such as Little God, as we watch him at the moment, just currently sitting in 7th place as they just go around setting a few flying laps. He's the current GT1 champion. It was a crazy way that he managed to win the title in absolute last second circumstances, but now he's joined the touring cars. He's looking for something a little bit different, trying to spread himself out a little bit more, try some new things and see how he gets on with that. You've got a couple of other faces as well, including the likes of Snarling Bongo, who is just around for a lap at the moment. He was part of our championship in GT1 as well. There's plenty of other drivers, and we'll take a look through them at the moment whilst we have a look through. So I believe Carling is now with me. Good evening, Carling. How are you?
Doing good over here across the pond. My first chance to sit in the booth in the Flux Touring Car Championship. I'm real excited about it. A track I'm actually familiar with. Ran Indy cars here quite a bit back in the day, and I'm just looking forward to this one. I know this is an old school race to the British drivers. They've been running cars like this here for many decades, and I think, as you said, it's going to be a wide open championship, and I'm really looking forward to it.
I think you actually blew my mind when you were saying that to me. It's like you ran Indy cars around this circuit. Quite frankly, I've got to ask the question, are you guys mad? Indy cars around this type thing?
To be honest with you, after probably 10 or 11 seasons of chasing it, I actually clinched my first IndyCar championship on this track with a third place finish. And it had a lot to do with guys wearing their tires out and doing what you just saw right there in about that section, and I came through and scored enough points in the penultimate race to clinch my first IndyCar title. And yeah, they ran here back in the late 70s on this course with the USAC Indy cars. They may have done it once with the Champ cars in the early 2000s. It's a fast little track, and I'd rather be in a touring car here, most certain, as Spankmeyer is showing us right now. But yeah, I've run the Indy cars here quite a bit. I like these type of circuits. Don't get me wrong, I love the big Brands Hatch course as well, but this little tight course like this is just built for this type of car. I believe the term that you guys in Britain have for it is saloon car racing. And
so these guys are absolutely thrashing it around the circuit at the moment, which is what I love to see, as Spankmeyer actually takes himself up to second place. And that's one of the things that you'll notice about a short circuit like this. As we say, just 1.2 miles. The times are going to be so close, and that is what makes every little bit of getting a perfect lap so important around here. Just those tiniest fractions could cost you a couple of places on the grid.
Oh, absolutely. And when you got a 47-second lap, or when the Indy cars we ran around here at about 38, but you would get, all it takes is if you're off by two tenths, that's 4 tenths on a normal size track. And it's very easy, I think, probably in these cars too. Not that I have a lot of experience in the touring cars here, but this track can be tough on the tires. The elevation changes, especially some of the turns that are, I'm not going to say off camber, but they kind of clip you, especially through the chicane area and then the inside stretch there. And I'd be worried about that. I know these guys are used to keeping the wheels on this thing for 45 minutes, but that's what I'd be thinking about in the car.
I gotta say, I don't want to know how these guys' arms are going to be. It's constant corners around this circuit, as well as Little God jumps up into second place, and that's what we mean about the absolute tiniest of fractions, 12 thousandths behind Snarling Bongo, who currently holds provisional pole position. There he is, already just sat in the garage, just biding his time. Do you think maybe making a couple of more setup changes, or just waiting to see how it goes?
Likely seeing what with the lead, probably sitting back and seeing if anybody bests it. I know that one of the great strengths of project cars is the Live Track 2.0, and that means that with a little rubber laid down and maybe some temperature in the track, you will see the fastest times in the last 4 or 5 minutes of a session, just like in real life. And so sometimes guys he's put down a quick time and he'll wait and see if anybody can beat it and get back. He's back out right now, so I'm sure it was just a setup change. But going back to what you were saying about Little God, won his first Flux Sports Car Class Championship last season in the GT1 class, and overall he's a 6-time winner in sports cars across the various classes. And I think coming off that first championship, you're looking at a guy in a new discipline. I expect him to be a contender.
I got to admit, I probably still should apologise for a couple of months ago, about 2.5 months ago, when we had that final. I do believe I may have blown out McToasty's ears just screaming at how exciting that final was. But it was brilliant to see, and as you say, he's still relatively new as well. He only joined Flux Motorsport in 2021, so this is all brand new to him still. Like I say, a new championship as well. How do you expect him to go? Because he's not been so sure about how he's going to be performing, because obviously a brand new series of racing as he's not used to, still just getting his toes into the pool, so to say. But how do you think he'll develop into a new series like this?
Well, it depends a lot on his background coming in. I know, speaking from experience and speaking from the drivers that I've known, let's say he is more sports car oriented, especially having won a class championship in GT1. Coming over to a car like this, on the American side, it's kind of equivalent to a sports car, IndyCar driver coming into the stock cars. You got to get used to a heavier car. You got to get used to a car that you drive, as my old racing instructor said when I was a teenager, you got to drive it with your feet more than with your hands. You're going to have to use the brakes. You're going to have to use, if you're a 2-footer, dragging that, doing a little bit of trail braking, all kinds of things to get this car to work. And you have to do it for 45 minutes and try to keep, the tires on it. And also knowing full well that this is full contact racing here in touring cars, and you're going to have to try to keep the fenders on it. So I think it goes down to how quickly he adapts. We'll know real quick after today how that looks. But this is a tight little track. I think we need to see who's going to keep it on the track before we'll really know going forward.
Indeed. As we just reached the halfway point of our qualifying session at the moment, Alex, who's sat in the garage at the moment, is on provisional pole position. Just a 10th behind is Spankmeyer, who's just coming across the line now. Will he improve on this lap as he comes down to the line now? It's still the same on a 47.2. Just a fraction behind in third place is Snarling Bongo. Little God, as we were talking about, is currently in fourth place. All of those drivers within 2 tenths of each other, and just slightly further back in fifth is Booth Jumbo. We've got Cov Carl in sixth place. We've got Otto Brown sitting in seventh at the moment. It's Porsche Man in 8th. Destroyer is down in 9th. Rounding out the top 10 is Stoltz, who's sat in the garage at the moment, and Green Gaming brings up the rear at the moment in 11th. But I mean, look at that. Green Gaming, I'm sure, will get a representative lap timing soon, but otherwise the rest of the field all within a second.
That's amazing. That's very much that's almost like spec racing. At a track like this, that's a fantastic gap, and what it means in essence is that there's no margin for error. I mean, if you're up front and you have a spin that loses you 10 or 15 seconds, but you're a second faster than the field, well, you got plenty of time to get it back. But on a field where you can't expect to gain more than 2 or 3 tenths off of even the middle pack guys, how do you make up a 10, 15 second loss if you have a big problem?
It is going to be one of those really difficult things. And on a circuit like this, it's tight, twisty, but these kind of cars are the type that you can really race on a circuit like this, which is what we like to see. So let's follow Alex as he comes across the line now. Is he starting a lap or is he just finished one? I'm not entirely sure, but we go down through the Paddock Hill bend as we go down the hill of Hillwoods as we get up to the hairpin of Droids, I think many people's favourite corner on this circuit. As you go down the Graham Hill into the Graham Hill bend, you'll notice a lot of British names, famous motorsport names throughout this circuit. On the Cooper straight now as he heads up to Surtees, and he'll sweep to the short-hand McLaren as we go back onto the long track of Clearwaves, and then through Clark Curve and then down the Brabham Straight for another flying lap of this qualifying in Brands Hatch as he crosses the line. Does he improve his time any further? Yes, he does. He goes on a 47.0 to give himself a 10.5 lead over Booth as someone out in the gravel. So a good flying lap there for Alex, just to strengthen his hold on provisional pole.
Yeah, terrific run there. I think that one of the keys to this track is just that type of smoothness. You got a couple spots, such as right there where you're running up on the curbs, where you have to push it. If you want the fast lap, you have to stretch to that edge. But if you go too far, it becomes very easy to, you run an extra foot over that curve and it shaves off 3 tenths rather than giving you an extra tenth. So you really got to put it together in order to get the fast laps on this circuit.
It's one of those circuits that I really love because having driven it myself, nowhere near as competitive as these guys. This is why I'm here in the commentary booth. But one of those things that I love is that when you get the corners right, it's so rewarding because just the slightest bit wrong and it's disaster because there's gravel traps waiting for you on the outside. So it is just that tiniest margins of you get it spot on, you feel so good. You get it just slightly wrong, and you're out in the gravel and losing tons of time.
I hear you there. I would say, although they don't bear a whole lot of cosmetic similarities, those of us Yanks used to the tracks over here, I always compare it in my mind to Laguna Seca. Very rewarding, very treacherous if you're not, on your game when you come here.
And it's very much up and downhill as well, especially kind of like Laguna Seca. It was one of my favourite American circuits, that one. So I see where you get it with the similarities to the up and the down, the swooping corners. It's very similar in style and very punishing if you get it wrong.
Yeah, you can actually use, with the Indy cars, we would use a similar setup from a Laguna Seca at a track like this and then, change the transmission up, the gearing. But at this one, I always remember that and I'm not great with the turn names here. We're used to over here across the pond, 1, 2, 3. We won't get more complicated than that unless we're at like Road America. But the first right-hander, the turn 1 downhill, I would tell guys all the time, that one and the final turn coming off onto the Brabham Straight, you got to make the car work there. That's a key to the speed of the track. If you're not quick coming off the final turn down the long, bending straight, you're just not going to be fast. And if you lose too much in that first turn coming down the hill, well, obviously you can't afford to get into the gravel, but it's the key to your approach, especially defending from someone trying to pass you heading into the into the hairpin.
Indeed. 4 minutes to go, and I've just noticed Alex has really got a stranglehold now on that provisional pole. He's done a 46.7. He's got himself under the 47 seconds and got himself almost half a second. Now that suddenly changes the game quite a lot with 3.5 minutes effectively left. How do you really combat something like that if you're the chasing pack?
With 3 minutes to go in the session, you pop in, you put on your hottest tires, you take all the fuel out, you close up everything and risk blowing your motor and make one final mad dash for it. But 4/10 is tough to make up.
Especially around a short circuit like this, and that's what we were saying. This is why you're expecting quite short times, as actually Potter Brown just suddenly just comes out of nowhere and gets himself up into second place. That's a really good lap from him.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I had him in a test session earlier this week, and he was running quick laps, both in these cars, I believe, and the Formula Renaults, just as part of the test session. So I know he can get the car around this place. I think you also have to take mention that Alu up front, and I'm not saying this necessarily is his situation, but, you know, that might be an aggressive setup. When a guy's that much quicker than the rest of the field in cars that are this equal, you have to ask, is that a car that can run 45 minutes?
You're wondering if there's the potential of a pit stop possibly.
A pit stop, or just, like I said, if you really batten down the car in qualifying trim, you close everything up, you go with a real aggressive suspension, a car that's borderline going to spin every lap, and you go for that one hot lap, that's not a setup that you can run, 45 minutes in traffic. It depends. Some guys are different. I mean, I know from personal experience, I basically qualify in a race setup. Other guys have a very aggressive setup. So it's possible that Alu has a highly aggressive setup, and that's what's given him that extra speed. But maybe that's not the car that can run for 45 minutes. At least that's what everyone in the field from second on back is fervently hoping. That's what their crew chief is telling them in the pit lane right now. Don't worry about it. He's on a qualifying setup, and everybody's going, "Are you sure?" And the crew chief is saying, "Trust me." And we'll find out here. That's why we're here. That's why we run the races, right?
I am so looking forward to it. We've got just over a minute left, so the question is who exactly can put a lap together in order to try and challenge. We're following Booth Jumbo here, a little interestingly, to see if he can manage to improve from his third place on what I believe is a flying lap. We'll just say that it is, as we come into the final minute now, as he's got the headlights on, as he now comes through Surtees and through McLaren. Someone stayed way out the way there. As he comes to the Clark curve and down the Brabham straight. 2 last chances to try and get himself a little further up the grid as he crosses the line. There's a couple of cars still trying to come out, even at this point. With just 34. Oh dear.
Big contact there. I don't know what you're seeing, but on my camera feed, Booth Jumbo is bending the fabric of space-time, and I believe that the race stewards want to talk to him in the pit lane. But that might, what I mean, folks, is lag. I'm seeing a little bit of lag on his part.
I'm going to say it's the interesting route, so to say.
It was an interesting line, yeah, no doubt.
We follow the last couple of cars then as time runs out in qualifying. It's such a big gap to Alex. Can anyone get anyone near him? Watch Potter Brown currently in second place. Can he improve his lap time? No, he doesn't. He stays in second place. Let's take a look at Snarling Bongo. He's already crossed the line. Destroyer has. There's just Green Gaming left. No improvements there. So I think, unless Alex himself is still going, which he is, so I think his pole position is safe at this point. But he's just crossing the line just to make sure, I think, at this rate. So nice, frantic qualifying, and if you like that, well, guess what? We've got 45 minutes more of it in a race coming up very shortly. So Alu is on pole position with Potter Brown in second. It's Spankmeyer in third. Snarling Bongo is fourth. Lil God, fifth on the grid. Kopkau is sixth. Destroyer in seventh. Porscheman in 8th, Stoltz in 9th, Green Gaming takes 10th place. We actually managed to lose someone in the process. I'm not sure we're down to 10, so someone's disappeared somewhere. I'll have to try and keep an eye out for that. And now it's time for our drivers to get themselves prepared for the race. So don't forget, whilst you're here watching, to keep up with everything Flux Motorsport related, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification icon so that you get notified of all the latest videos as they appear here on YouTube. And why not drop us a like on this video too? You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at Flux Motorsport, and don't forget, you can also join our Discord server to keep up to date with everything going on here at Flux Motorsport. If you want to join in, maybe you want to be part of these races in the future, all you have to do is head to the website fluxmotorsport.com where you can sign up there. It's just a quick little evaluation drive that you've got to do, and then you're welcome to join our championships. So, Carling, as we wait and get ready for 45 minutes of, I'm sure, crazy action, after what you saw in qualifying, what can you expect from the race, do you think?
Frantic door-handle to door-handle racing. I think especially the first few laps, you're jockeying for position. Track position's everything at this place. If you can get into the first 2 or 3 cars and get in a straight line earlier than the rest of the pack, that's going to be a huge advantage.
And one of the things I like to do with Muktosi last season in the GT1 Championship is see how mystic and how good his predictions could be. Who are you predicting for the first win of the season?
Given the speed that he exhibited in qualifying and the fact that he does have a career win in the Flux Touring Car Championship, you can't go against Alu here. Definitely a favorite. However, we know Snarling Bongo and Little God have tremendous speed. And I would say that those 3 would be my podium picks with a take the winner, pick them out of that.
So there you go. Someone make a note of that so we remember it near the end of the race as we get ourselves ready then, as the lights are coming on. And it's time for the lights to go out. It is the opening of round 1 of the Touring Car Championship. And whoa, that is looking a little bit crazy back there. It looked like a slow getaway from our leaders at the front, and it's Pop the Brown who's managed to get into the lead as Spanmeyer also gets into second. Alia has dropped down to third, and Little God looking like he's going to try around the outside here for a move. That is looking really hectic, but just stays in 4th place, and that is what you like to see. Frantic, chaotic action all through the grid right on the start of that opening lap. What happened up the front there?
I'm not exactly sure. Looked like Pot the Brown just got a terrific jump. Maybe had the better gearing for the standing start.
As he comes round now to start the end of the first lap, and like I say, it is going to be hectic. You're going to be getting less than minute-long laps, so it's going to be interesting to try and keep an eye on who gets the fastest lap as well, as Spankmeyer holds out in second place. Olio is now trying to get back that second place, though. He's going to try up the inside of Druid. That's going to get tight, but they've just managed to avoid contact, and that is going to give an opportunity for Lil God behind, but he gets a little bit of a love tap, in fact, from Starling Bongo, who now goes side to side. The back straight, my word, this is what we like. A lot of action all over the place. You don't know where to go, don't know where to look.
It's trading paint, as we call it over here in the States. These guys are just rubbing off decals as we speak, looking for jockeying for position in these cars.
As we say, Robin is racing here as it's now Kovkar looking to put the pressure on Snarling Bongo for 5th place. This is where you need to keep your eyes open, because there is moves going on all over the place. It's looking a little bit more spaced out at the front. However, this is looking a lot closer. Kovkar is going to try and get up the inside of Druids, but it's a better exit for Snarling Bongo, so just manages to hold on to that 5th place, and it's basically really good way of being able to see the different racing lines that these guys are taking, which is really allowing them to get close racing, doing that Robin, and this is just all over the place, and that's what I love.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're looking somebody in Cub Carl, Snarling Bongo's position 5 or 6. You want to get by the guy, but you're watching the interval on the left-hand side. I don't mind being back in 4th, 5th, 6th place as long as that interval to the leader is relatively steady. At this point, I'm willing to wait out the guys to make mistakes, as long as I'm not losing time.
looking quite close up the front there. I think Spackmeyer was trying to make a move on Potter Brown for the lead, but didn't quite come off there, as Aliou is also in third place, getting quite close. So suddenly it was spaced out between the three of them the previous lap, and then this lap all of a sudden they got really close to each other coming down to the Paddock Hill Bend.
This is a tough spot because you're going to see dirty air coming through the turn onto the Brabham Straight here. As you come up on a car, you're going to lose that front end if you're right in their slipstream, and that makes that turn that much tougher. If you go too hard to the inside, the car gets loose. If you dance the outside too hard, you're dancing with sand. So it's that much tougher when you're in traffic like this.
And Aliou is trying to look around the outside. It's a brave move, but it's one that's possible. But I think he needed to be a little bit more closer there. But just keeping an eye on, just keeping a look. And this is very early stages. We've got two groups of three leading the way here, as Kovkar now putting the pressure once again on Snarling Bongo for 5th place. And this is pretty much where our action is all over the place. And this is what I love to see, as Kovkar is basically trying this way, that way as he exits McLaren. And then it goes down the Clark curve. He's trying to get on the inside here. Snarling Bongo will have the straight line speed, just taking a bit of a wider line. But it's that sniff, and that's one of the things you've got to be careful about, especially here. And especially in a situation where you're in packs of 3 as well. It's a case of, do I look right in front of me, or do I have to keep my eye behind me? Do I attack? Do I defend? How do you do that, especially if you're the guy in the middle?
The guy in the middle is the toughest spot, because if you're at the tail end here, you can pace yourself by the guy in front of you. If I'm keeping pace with him, I can save some tires, save some fuel if it's that kind of race, as long as I'm not getting pressure from behind. But when you're the guy in the middle right there, which I believe is Snarling Bongo, that's the toughest, because you have to defend. You want to make the move on the guy in front of you, but you're not able to just pace yourself. You have to defend that guy behind you. There are situations where I've given up that position and gone ahead and say, you know what, I'll be at the tail end of the line here and let you be stuck in the middle.
And there's a prime example of it with Spackmeyer, who just took the lead into Paddock Hill Bend, but he ran wide, which gave Potter Brown the opportunity to take the lead back, and then immediately Spackmeyer had to be wary of Aliou in 3rd place. So that is just a prime example of it, side by side. And there it is at the back again, Snarling Bongo and Carl going side by side, a little bit of rubbing there as well down on the Cooper Straight. So it's attempts of positions, they're getting close. They're really, really trying to work out where exactly they're going to place their car to get the moves done. There's been a couple of show of hands so far, but the moves just haven't quite been pulled off yet.
I think they're just settling in. We're still just 8 laps in, 6 minutes into this race. We're going to run somewhere well over 45 laps, somewhere in the range of, I'd say, 50 or more. And they're just trying to settle in. I know I'm looking at the tire wear at this point, how the heat is getting into the tires. Am I going to have to worry about that? I think the position I'd want to be in is where Aliou is. He knows he has speed in the car. He can pace himself behind the 2 in front of him. And as long as he feels comfortable in the car's handling, just stay there and wait to make his move. He does not have to be the leader at this point and be looking in his rearview mirror. He's got a gap to the 4th place car behind him, as we spoke of earlier, and that's where I'd want to be right now.
He was maybe possibly looking for a move on the inside to Paddock Hill Bend, not quite coming off at the moment. Is that a little bit of a dive? And that may have been a bit of a mistake. Aliou just managing to go wide, so Spackmeyer just saved there. He tried to dive up the inside on Potter Brown of Druids, and that caused Aliou to have to try and take a little bit of evasive action as well. So Spackmeyer really trying to push for this lead now. So in this position, do you want to be following, or do you want to be, especially on a circuit like this where it's corner after corner after corner, as you say, the tyre wear might be kicking in, the heat that's going into the tyres, especially with constant corners. It's not going to work out here if they keep pushing this hard throughout the whole race.
Absolutely. There's always a track that's tough to pass like this, especially what we were just talking about, being the second in line in the sandwich, and you have a feeling Aliou is going to be able to get back up to these guys. I'd want to get the pass done. However, at this point in the race, I wouldn't feel the pressure to make the pass myself. I would just pressure the guy in front of me, see if he blinks. Make it a blinking contest and see if he gives it to you with a mistake. But at this point in the race, you don't have to make the pass. I think keeping tires under you is more important than making the pass. That second pack of 3 is dealing with the same thing you guys are. They're not gaining significant time on you. I don't mind cruising at this point.
As Aliu has dropped a little bit behind at the moment. I think there was a mistake maybe that's kind of dropped him a little bit more towards the second pack, as Spankmeyer now trying up another inside on Druids, and he's side by side this time. It's a lot better for him. Gets the move done. Spankmeyer takes the lead. Will Potter Brown be able to make the move back? He's following in the footsteps, but just can't quite get it done. So Spankmeyer holds on to the place, but on the back Cooper straight, it is Potter Brown still looking this way and that way. And this looks like it could be something that goes back and forth this whole race at this rate.
I think they're pretty much the same speed. So you're absolutely right. We're going to have to see. It matters as to who's good at what point in the race. I'm interested to see what Aliu's lap times are here, 47.8, because as we spoke of earlier, was it a qualifying setup? Is it going to fall off quicker than the other guys, or has he just lost a little bit of rhythm here after that earlier mistake? We'll have to wait and see, but I'll be interested to see if the other guys' lap times start coming down as the fuel burns off, and if he's able to get back up towards the speed he was running earlier, like in qualifying.
I've got to give a shout out to Destroyer as well in 7th place. He's still just hanging on a little bit further behind that second pack here. Nearly 10 minutes into the race, he's not quite with them, but also he hasn't completely dropped off either, so he's doing quite well there in 7th place to keep himself especially interested if something does happen up ahead.
We got somebody in the pits there back in 10th. I'm wondering if that's a repair. That's the Monster Energy car of Porsche Man, and we'll see how long he's in here. If they look like they're done at that point and the car stays there, you can be almost certain that that's a damage repair, and that's going to lose a lot of time on this track.
That's a long time he's been in the pits already. Dropped down to last place. Looks like it was Booth Jumbo who was stretching space and time a little bit earlier in qualifying, who was the one who dropped out. So he's not joined us for the race. I'm going to say I'm not sure which universe he's managed to land in, but hopefully he comes back to Earth next week to join us for some more racing action, as it's still looking quite quick. Carling is still Snarling Bongo, is still pressuring Lil God. It's not you. You're in the booth with me.
Absolutely.
So that would be interesting if you were pressuring them as well out on there. But Snarling really still putting the pressure on Lil God. Both of these two joining the touring cars for the first time, jumping from GT1. So it was close racing with them last season as well. So it's just another old rivalry resumed here.
Oh yeah, they're familiar with each other. I know some of the guys over on the American Tour. We've been racing together for literally years, and probably 20 of these seasons, and you get to know another driver. Now, the good thing about that, people think that means you might have a lot of baggage built up, and it can, but I think more than anything, it builds up trust. Like, they know they can run together nose to tail. They know how this guy passes. They know what it looks like when he's being aggressive and when he's waiting. That helps you feel comfortable running with somebody as opposed to a newer driver, and that's the wonder of motorsports. As rookies cycle in, you're always going to have half a field you're comfortable with and half a field that you're not.
As Kovkar now trying to look again, still basically I think his 12 minutes of racing so far has been, how do I get past Snarling Bongo? Can I do it around the left? Can I do it around the right? He's still looking for different places, tries a bit of a wider line that might give him a little bit extra speed on the main straight as we come down to start yet another lap, and still just trying to figure out his way. But Snarling really seems to have this covered and seems to be able to maybe put a little bit more focus on the position ahead rather than the one behind, because Kovkar, as much as he's trying to find a way through, just hasn't managed to quite figure it out just yet.
Yeah, it's a tough position for him. Lap time wise, as you can see on the board there, they're pretty much been running the same speed as the leaders. The question is, can they go faster to catch them? when you're in Cub Carl's position, it's like we said earlier. If he puts a move on Snarling Bongo here, that's a high-risk move. Maybe he makes the pass, but where does that leave him? That leaves him second in that line with Snarling Bongo breathing down his neck. I just don't know that it pays to be, as long as you're maintaining that gap, and they've stayed right around 5 seconds for quite a while now, I would be fine until we get to the bottom half of the race. We get inside about 20 minutes, then I'd be thinking about where I'm at. But as of right now, they're almost cruising. They're maintaining the gap. They're running the same speeds pretty much as the leaders. You know, it's a tough situation. When do you make that decision to start being more aggressive? How much time do you need?
But we saw an example of it right there on what we were talking about in qualifying, the Paddock Hill bend. If you get it right, it's so satisfying, but if you get it slightly wrong, it can punish you, and it almost punished Snarling Bongo there. It just ran a little bit wide, and that gave Kovkar an opportunity to sniff up the inside of Druids, but Snarling was just able to keep him behind just enough going in there as we come round to Paddock Hill bend once again. At this time, how does Snarling take it? Still a little bit wide, and that is maybe where Kovkar has got an opportunity. If he can maybe just ace that corner completely. I don't know if Snarling's more comfortable with that wide line and running on the curbs, but it does seem to be giving Kovkar that sniff of an opportunity that he's been looking for. There's
not a lot of where to go with the setups in the touring cars, I know, but it almost looks like Kovkar has more downforce, or at least has more grip on the front end at this point. As he came in to Paddock Hill there, he was just stuck to the track coming down, whereas Snarling Bongo was riding the edge and hanging on to it. You'll see if he looks like that again coming down here. Both of them go wide that time, so maybe it makes a liar out of me, but it just looked to me for a moment there like Kovkar had a little more grip. Now right there, it looks like you can see right there he slowed down, but I think he's got better turning at this point, better grip on the front end, and that can turn into a loose or oversteery race car as you go on, but he might be in the sweet spot right now where the car is working for him.
What do you go for in a circuit like this where you've not got that many straight lines to really be able to build up that speed, because it is constant corner? Do you go more downforce, or do you go a little bit less to have that straight line speed, or do you find a happy medium?
I personally, I know from the IndyCar testing when we used to run here, what I would look for personally is I'm not great on hairpin turns and stuff like that. So what I would try to do is get the balance coming out of the last turn there onto the Brabham straight. And by balance, I would mean likely it means a lot of downforce, because anybody who might have 3 or 4 miles per hour at the end of the straight on you, they have to get that power right here into the road. If they can't get that power onto the road and get the power down coming up through this section, if they're still burping the throttle trying to get the car under them, then they're not going to get to that extra 3 or 4 miles per hour that the low downforce setup gives you. So that's what I would go for. You've got to make it out of the last turn and down Paddock Hill, clean. And you not only got to do it fast, you have to do it for 45 minutes. So in this case, I'm willing to give up 0.2 a lap just to have a car I know will be there at the end.
Excellent. So we have just got past the third way stage of the race so far. Leading the way is Spankmeyer, still in first place. Had grown his lead to over a second, and then it dropped all the way back down to 0.2 with Potter Brown in second place. But it's just opened up once again to around about 3/4 of a second. Aliu has caught back up in third place, but he has picked himself up a time penalty. We'll see how much for that shortly. Little God maybe falling a little bit away from the leaders down in fourth place, and just building himself up a gap between the battling Snarling Bongo and Kovkar in fifth and sixth place at the moment. Destroyer finds himself still in a very good and very comfortable seventh place, still ready to pick up if there's any incidents up ahead of him. It's Stoltz in 8th place. Green Gaming is currently in 9th, and Porscheman, who saw in the pits a little while ago, is back out on track in 10th position. So, third of the way through, who's got your eye so far?
I'd say what I'm looking at here up front, and keeping in mind, as we said, with no previous class champions with full-time rides in the series, all three of ththese guys are looking to win that first championship in the Flux touring cars, and two of them, Spankmeyer and Alu, both have one victory in the touring cars. They've each won one Flux touring car race, and Pot the Brown, however, has not. So I think that you have to think about that right there. I always used to say, watching guys drive for many, many seasons and watching them develop, it's very much like you'd see in real life. Guys will struggle to get that first win. And once you get that first win, the floodgates opened. You know, I remember my first season where I started winning, and yeah, the floodgates opened real quick. Because you got to learn how to win. You got to learn not just how to be fast and qualify up front. You got to put it together for 45 minutes and be able to do it over that stretch, and also have your strategy together and not blink. You know, this is a gunfight with the other guys up front, and it's always a thing to wonder when you're looking at these races. Spankmeyer, we know, has done it. Alu, we know, has done it. Pot the Brown has not done it yet. Is that on his mind? Is that on their mind? This is his chance to prove himself.
And obviously he was leading the way. He had a fantastic start to jump from second into first at the beginning of the race. Managed to lead for the first 10 minutes or so before Spankmeyer managed to dive his way through. So how much confidence does he have, at least, that even though he's been overtaken, the fact that he hasn't fallen any further away than a second since being overtaken, and he's still just hanging on, just maybe learning how Spankmeyer is going about this. How much confidence is he building in himself to maybe make that overtake a little bit later on in the race?
I think in a race like this, where it's not really a big strategy race beyond what you're doing with your tires and your setup, what I'm looking at here is, as long as you're hanging, like you said, I'd be worried for those first few laps after the guy passed me. If I see that gap opening up, then I start thinking to myself, well, I'm racing for second unless something happens to him. But the way he's hung in there so far, I would say that he feels pretty comfortable. He just has to avoid making the mistake. But you're always in this situation, you're always more comfortable, especially as the laps wind down and the clock winds down, you're always more comfortable in the lead, because the pressure is going to be, you know, we're getting past that point I was talking about earlier, or getting close to that point I was talking about earlier, where it's no longer cruising time. Go ahead and get, you know, you're going to want to get going. And I think he's probably thinking here, like you said, let me see what Spankmeyer's got. He's locking up the brakes a little bit here and there. Where's my place? Because I think when Pot the Brown makes the move, I think that he wants it to be the definitive move.
We were talking about how these close battles have got to be, you've got to be perfect when you know you make your moves and try not to make the mistakes. It looks like Kovkar has made a mistake in trying to take that 5th place, because he's dropped to 7th now, a couple of seconds behind Destroyer, who was always in that position to try and pick up on any mistakes. He's got himself up into 6th place now, in fact even 5th. He's got himself ahead of Snarling Bongo there, so fantastic job by him.
Yeah, Snarling Bongo had a 52-second lap. He had about a 4-second off last time, so he's obviously recovering. As you know, we were talking about the Live Track 2.0 earlier. We were lucky to get a clear day here in Britain, but I think that the track's getting dirty, especially when you get offline, like what obviously just happened to Snarling Bongo. So he's going to need a minute to get himself back together, and Destroyer's just waiting, and taking advantage of it. Now let's see if he can get away from him.
It's one of those things, especially, and I noticed there was another driver in the GT1 Championship that had this as well. Just playing that dark horse of just going under the radar, not getting noticed, and then just suddenly just popping up in these good positions like Destroyer has, getting himself up to 5th now. You kind of, how do you do that? But you're impressed nonetheless.
Oh, absolutely. There is something to be said when guys come into a race and they're not thinking you're the guy to beat. They're not watching you in practice. They're not watching you in qualifying. Whether or not some guys achieve that by sandbagging, a lot of guys, I'm speaking for myself, not a fast qualifier or a fast guy in practice. much better over a longer run. Maybe that's Destroyer. He knew he wasn't going to qualify up front, and he just said, you know what, I'm going to keep this car underneath me. I'm going to outdrive these guys in essence and keep the car underneath me. And right now, a top 5 would be a great start to the season. And he still has time to move up. He's only 10 seconds back.
That's one of the things I've always wondered is, like, I know there's people that really like the flat out, pure qualifying pace, but considering, you know, really, yes, okay, there is a point for pole position, but considering the majority of the points are all in the race, I've always wondered, like, why people don't focus just more on, you know, getting that ability in the race, getting that, you know, performance in the race, you know, maybe sacrifice a little bit in qualifying, but knowing that you've got a better race car.
Of course, and I think it depends on the track, how vital is track position at that place. But I go back to my favorite IndyCar driver growing up was Al Unser Jr. He won Long Indy 500 twice, IndyCar title twice, Long Beach 6 times. He had 34 career wins and only 7 career poles. He used to win at Long Beach from 7th, 9th, 11th, 13th, you know, and they'd ask him why that was, and all his engineers would say throughout his 20-year career, they said, Al never has a qualifying setup. He shows up at the track, he says, put the car under me that I'm going to drive in the race, and he would run his practice laps. When it came to qualifying, they would take fuel out, they might turn the wings down a little bit, but he would not do extensive suspension changes and all that kind of stuff, and he would settle for being a 5th to 10th qualifier. And it worked for him. He was always excellent under race conditions and, you know, very rarely made mistakes. So I think there's something to be said for that. And look at the laps that Destroyer's running now. That is not the lap times of a guy who qualified near the back of the field. So he is definitely has a racing car underneath him.
Definitely faster lap time last time round than leader Spankmeyer. Only by a 10th or so, but that's still exactly what you're talking about. As Kovkar now finds himself in the pits, maybe done himself a bit more extensive damage. I'm not entirely sure what's gone on there, but what seemed like a potentially promising race, unfortunately, maybe just gone away from Kovkar.
And meanwhile, Spankmeyer up here holding the lead. Saw him yesterday in the Formula Renault race in a car he didn't even have time to practice. And but that is not the case with touring cars. He is ready to go. And what make is that of his? I'm not quite sure on these. He is in the...
I think he's in the Renault.
He's in the Renault, yeah. And he's just holding 48 seconds, 48 through. They're all right around that time, and we have not seen the lap times change through 32 laps, which means that the car balance, the fuel burn off, is just outpacing the tire wear at this point. The question I think I have at this point is, where is that line at? At what point, what lap number are we going to start seeing? It doesn't matter how much fuel you've lost. Those tires are practically gone. And look at the way Spankmeyer's going on this lap and the way they're closing in. It might be now.
He had a wobble going through Paddock Hill Bend. I think he got himself a little bit on the inside curb, and that has given the opportunity to Potter Brown to get close. And Aliu, who dropped off a little bit earlier, is now starting to catch up as well. But he does have that time penalty, so he'll have to make himself a gap if he does manage to get these guys in front of him as well. So it's looking quite close, and of course they're facing the other issue now, as you can see, bank markers that they're having to try and avoid, and that on a tight, narrow circuit like this is always going to be a constant problem.
I think it's worth to note that as Aliu was catching up to those two, the lap before this one, 47.7 last lap, lap before that, 47.2 before he got to the back of them. So I think that he may have the fastest car by itself, but as I was speaking of earlier, that fastest car by itself might be stripped out and might not be as good in traffic. So we'll have to see what he can do here in the last 18 minutes.
If anything, Aliu is now... Oh, but that looked like a little half spin. He's just recovered it. I was saying he looked like he might have been going for an opportunity up the inside of Potter Brown, but I think he just caught the inside curve on Clark Curve there, which just had him a little bit of a half spin. It's just put him a little bit further back now from Potter Brown. So that just gives Potter Brown a little bit some breathing space as well. And he's come back to that position that we were talking about earlier. Being the middle guy in a three-way battle is not the place you really want to be.
No, it's very tough. It's different, obviously, in a touring car like this. We always talk about it on the speedway racing as you're losing your air on the front and the rear. I do think right through this section that is a factor right there. That the dirty air definitely is affecting your downforce, and I think that may be what's happening with Alu in there. You saw him. If you try to make a pass on the inside through this section, the car can get really loose or oversteery in continental speak. But the fact is that that could be what his problem is right now. Pot de Brown still seems to be stuck pretty well. We've seen the brakes locking up for Spankmeyer. You got to like the position Pot de Brown's in right now as some of the back markers are moving out of their way.
I'm going to say there was two completely different lines out of McLaren on the last lap between Spankmeyer and Pot de Brown. I was wondering how that was going to come out. It actually kind of balanced out come the end of it. So it's very interesting to see now just how they're doing. You see Pot de Brown just takes a little bit of a wider line into the entry compared to Spankmeyer, just to maybe open things up a little bit, just to give himself a little bit of extra overspeed, although it's not quite worked out for him this time around. But you can see it's just those differences that are happening out on track. So we just take a quick look, shall we, at our timings. There's a lot of penalties going about at the moment, a lot of 2 seconds. That's 8 seconds actually for Snarling Bongo. So he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to keep his position ahead of Destroyer, who he's managed to get over ahead of again. Fastest lap at the moment looking like a 47.0, is that? It's a 47.0 for Alu, so he's got the point for provisional fastest lap as well. So it's so tough on a situation like this. You've really got to fight the tyres, because we're getting to the 2/3 stage now. We're in that position of you've probably got the tyres screaming enough, but at the same time, because it's such a smooth circuit, because everyone's still so close, you just can't really afford a pit stop just to swap tyres to give you fresh tyres, because you're not really going to make that time back up.
No, and it's also very tough in cars like this. Haven't run touring cars. I've run the Trans Am cars in America, which are a similar niche here. And the problem with that is that you're going to wear the tires off. And if you're in, as we spoke of with Alu earlier, with this track so tight and all the back markers, I just want higher downforce. I want a more drivable car, even if I'm giving away speed, just for these moments right now, because we're going to start hitting cars. Not only do these guys got to get by each other, they got to get by whoever they're coming up on, who's running their own race. And they'll try to get out of the way, but I know as a driver, I'm not going to wreck myself to get out of the way of the leaders. So it's going to be tough here. It really is. I think at this point, it's less about who's the fastest and more about who has the best handling car.
Pot de Brown goes for a defensive on Alu. Tried to take a sniff up the inside of Druids. It wasn't going to work. It was a very early defense from Pot de Brown there, but it's getting very close between these top three as we get past the 2/3 stage. It is Spankmeyer still leading the way from Pot de Brown in second place, that we're watching here, with Alu just right behind in third place, and it's looking quite close. Well, what happened to Alu there? He's gone and made a mistake, and that has sent him way off. He's quite lucky that Lil God in fourth place is some way behind. That another mistake he didn't need, as Lil God, as we see him there in fourth place, just kind of running his own race. I think he'll be happy with fourth, considering it's the first time he's taken part in the touring cars. It's Snarling Bongo back up in fifth place, but remember, he's got that 8-second time penalty. Destroyer is back in sixth place now. Stoltz doing his own thing in seventh place. Kovkar just a few seconds behind in eighth. It is ninth for Green Gaming, and Porscheman is down in 10th place. So a little bit of a wobble there for Alu, and that has allowed Pot de Brown to now go on the offensive once again against Spankmeyer, and that's the problem maybe that Alu is facing. Is like, is he getting a little bit impatient? When you see the time is starting to run out, maybe you've got just under a quarter of an hour left, you want him to make those moves, but for the second time he's dropped back, and now he's got to work his way back up to the guys in front if he wants an opportunity to try and get ahead of them. Although, hello, let's take a quick look here. Spankmeyer has now got himself the time penalty of 2 seconds, so now Pot de Brown is actually in a position to win the race. All he's got to do actually now is to sit behind Spankmeyer. That is a disaster for Spankmeyer.
Oh, absolutely. I'm assuming that's a track limit penalty somewhere. Maybe he got a repeated warning about it, but that's a tough thing to take. Not to say Pot the Brown might not have one, but that definitely changes the complexion of the race quite a bit. I think without an Alu situation, you're 100% right. Trying to get back to them now, he may be able to do it. We know last lap he was faster. You see what happens when he comes across this time. Not this time, he had a little problem, but I think he has the speed to get back there. The thing is, even if he can get there, he's going to use the tires up trying to get back to them. And as they like to say over here, is one thing catching you and one thing passing you. That might have been a little too much for him, but that depends on what happens to these two. Spankmeyer has to be real aggressive now and try to pull away.
And that's one of the things I just noticed as well, especially in Druids, that's a really interesting corner, because I've noticed that Spankmeyer a couple of times now has actually been taking the inside of the corner on entry, which is a rare thing to do. You'd think that would actually slow him down, but it seems to be working for him. One of those interesting lines, I don't think I've actually seen that before, unless someone was defending the position, which Spankmeyer is not in a position to be doing. As you say, right now, really needs to be trying to pull out the gap. But you see it again, he's not really defending the position, but that's just the line that he's taking.
Oh, yeah, I think that going through, I believe you called it Druids, I'm not good with the names, on the back section there, leading onto the Brabham front straight. I've seen that. I've always seen that line as, like we said, you go too far to the inside and the car's going to get light on you, oversteery. The guys who I've seen go the fastest here will ride that outside, but that's dangerous. You know, you can do that for maybe a lap or two, but eventually you're going to put a wheel in the grass. And right there, Pot the Brown goes by.
Brown.
He must. That looks like a slowdown.
So what's happened to Spankmeyer? That's very slow. He's actually, I think, as you say, he's picking up speed again. He's just got past Alu, who's now just gone off the track himself and gets himself back into second. Pot the Brown has now picked up a time penalty as well. Little God is literally the only driver in the field who hasn't picked up a time penalty at this point.
I know, Nook, it's tough to see what happened there. I almost thought run out of fuel or something, but it looks like it was. I mean, you usually don't see 4-second lost on a slowdown penalty. So interesting to see what that was. It looked like a slowdown penalty. He's back up to speed now, so not really sure what that was about, but whatever it was, unless Pot the Brown's penalty is very substantial, he's out in front and looking in a good position to get his first career Flux Touring Car Championship win.
Let's take a quick look at it. It's 2 seconds as well, as Snarling Bongo has actually now got himself up to 10 seconds, so he's really pushing the boundaries around the circuit here. So it's actually evened out between the top three, so if they are able to get back into a battle between each other, it would be for position, because they've all got a 2-second time penalty. So it'll be interesting to see as we're just coming to the last 9 minutes now, because of that situation for Spankmeyer. He's now really kind of defending himself from Alu from behind, rather than having to worry about Pot the Brown. Pot the Brown kind of just enjoying himself out in the lead now. As you can see, that's the biggest lead that we've had throughout the whole race. After 35 minutes, the biggest lead, just over 4 seconds, and it's only just happened. It shows you how tight this racing has been throughout the whole thing. So again, as we see Spankmeyer just go for that inside quite early on there. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting battle. Like you say, it's now evened out. So Alu, after all the issues he's had, seeing something like that to Spankmeyer, that just gives you the motivation. When you see something happen to a rival up in front, that just gives you the motivation to keep going forward again. And now he's starting to put the pressure on Spankmeyer for second place.
It changes everything when you can see them. They can be saying in your ear, you're closing. You can see it on the board that the time's going down, but when you can see them in front of you, that makes a big difference. And I think that he's just going to try to get those extra few points are absolutely valuable. I think right now, though, we look at the last lap, and Spankmeyer and Alu are significantly quicker than Pot the Brown, and 8 minutes, we're looking at least 10 more laps, maybe as many as 10 or 11, possibly 12. That's a lot of time. That's a half a second. By mathematics, they would catch him in about 7 laps there. So this is not over yet. They're closing.
And just one of the things I love is just how close this battle has been. As Aoyu now trying to maybe look at the inside, not quite, maybe look around the outside. It's either way will do for him, just so long as he can get himself ahead, is really starting to put the pressure on. And that's maybe what Potter Brown up in the lead will be wanting then, as the gap is starting to close, as you say. It's just for these two to start squabbling for position rather than working together to get back up front.
Yeah, they've been outrunning him so far. That last little fight, though, you see where they're at. Potter Brown put the hammer down a little bit, got it back closer, but they are running quicker than him. It's just a tough situation. You want to get by the other guy because you think you can easily, you could easily catch him, but you also don't know if Potter Brown is just cruising at this point. He might be managing the gap. I know, like that ridiculous series of movies says, it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. I know with a 5-second lead, I'd be like, I don't care if they get back to my rear wing as long as I'm in front at the end. So he might just be cruising around, but they're starting to lose time fighting with each other.
As we said, both of them both going wide on the Graham Hill bend on the last lap, so that really lost them quite a fair bit of the time. So really just opened up that gap again, made Potter Brown feel that a little bit more comfortable. Down in fourth place, we've got to say great job by Little God, kind of just really just gone about doing his own thing. His first time out in the touring cars. We say he's the only driver who hasn't actually picked up a time penalty at the moment, so a great job by him on his first outing. And for someone who in the GT1 championships really struggles right at the start of the opening couple of races, really doesn't find his feet, really struggles, but then near the end of it becomes nigh on untouchable. I think he'll be incredibly happy with a fourth place if this is where he can stay in the last 5 minutes.
I think it's a great start for him. As I said earlier, got his first Flux Sports Car Championship in the GT1 class last season. He's got 6 wins in sports cars. And as you said, you come out right off the bat and run in fourth place. I think he's made as much of a statement as the top 3 guys. He can expect, like, I'm going to be here. Look at the lap times he's running. He's been keeping pace with them the entire race. So wherever his 11 seconds have lost, he knows where that it was lost and it was not in the car.
4 minutes and 40 seconds left to go, and it's starting to get a little bit close again at 4 second places. Aoyu trying to look around. Druids is not going to get up the inside. We know that much for sure because of the line that Spankmeyer is taking, but it's right close between them once again, squabbling for that position. Really looking like it's too little too late to be able to challenge for the win unless Potter Brown has an incident up in the lead himself. But although it looks like maybe Aoyu has maybe had a slowdown penalty, like you say, that we saw a little bit earlier, and suddenly that gap has now opened to over 2.
Sorry about that. A little bit of a problem there with the controller, apparently. Well timed.
Yeah, so these two really, again, it's just that thing of Aoyu has been pushing and pushing and pushing, and just the slight over-exuberance, maybe just a slight mistake creeping in here or there, possibly you could say has cost him today. But still, with all of that in mind, I think he'll be happy with a third place, even if that's the best that he'll end up doing today.
I look at it and you don't know what the driver's thinking inside the car, and sometimes us commentators are blowing hot air, but he really did, with that kind of speed advantage in qualifying, and with the way his car has been in traffic at times, I do think aggressive setup. It seems like the car is a bit aggressive. Look at the lap times he's still pulling when he's by himself are significantly better than he's done when he's stuck in the line of traffic. Yeah, you're happy to be on the podium. Including the bonus points, it's going to put him in a position where he's right there in the championship. But when you qualify 0.4 of a second faster than the field in a Flux touring car championship race, you want to be at the top of the podium. So I think there's a little bit of disappointment there.
Although I will bring up one thing, with 2.5 minutes to go, doesn't want to be making any more mistakes. Remember, Little God behind him is the only driver who doesn't have a time penalty. It's only about 4.5 seconds behind, and it's a 2-second time penalty for
That's a good point. That is a very good point.
Little God only needs to get himself another 2 and a bit seconds closer in these final few laps, and maybe he could just nab that final podium place away. It's been fluctuating quite a lot, I have noticed, between us. So Aoyu, on the one hand, he's got to be making sure that he can maybe get himself closer, maybe one last chance at Spankmeyer for that second place, but on the other hand, he can't afford any more mistakes, especially in these last few minutes.
Yeah, look at the lap times. Spankmeyer and Aoyu, they're running half a second to a second quicker than Pot the Brown. As we said, Pot the Brown probably is cruising to some extent. But when that number gets below 3 seconds and he can see them right there in his rear view, I guarantee you he's thinking about it. If he picks up the time on this next lap, I'll think Pot the Brown was cruising. If he doesn't, I'll think he was sweating.
As we were saying about that gap from behind, it's suddenly opened up again. It's about 6 seconds now to Little God. So really, he maybe noticed it himself and just wanted to make sure that he's very safe, as he's right on the back now of Spankmeyer. Could there be a last moment opportunity here? We've just a minute to go, so we're getting close to the end of the race. We just have to see
2 laps remaining.
Pot the Brown is. Yes, there is. Maybe we'll just have a look as we watch Pot the Brown cross the line now as he comes to it. It's gonna be very close. It's 49 seconds left as he crosses the line.
It may be the white flag, yeah.
It could be the penultimate, or it could be the final lap. It's really difficult to tell because it's right on the bubble. Can Pot the Brown maybe afford just a little bit of a coast right at the end of the lap? He's got a 2-second gap. Maybe he can afford a little bit of a coast to the line.
That's what I would do.
It's going to be very close. He's got that gap. He could coast it just to ensure that this is the final lap. As we watch the battle between Spankmeyer and Aoyu. Aoyu trying any way that he possibly can. Pot the Brown maybe just looks like he's slowed down just a little bit as he comes to the line now. There's 4 seconds. 3, 2, 1 is gonna do it. It is gonna be, and Pot the Brown will cross the line. But the race actually looks like it's still going. I think
always confusing there.
Lap.
Yeah,
this is the final lap. So
yeah, here they go. They're still going.
Close. So one last lap of this. The battle between Spankmeyer and Aoyu is still looking as fiery as ever. And Pot the Brown actually has only got about a second advantage. So maybe that coasting didn't quite work out for him in the end. But it looks like he may still be able to hold on as they come through McLaren, go to the Clark curve. It's going to be close, but it looks like Pot the Brown is just going to hang on here. At the start of Season 3 in 2021, it is victory number 1 for Pot the Brown as they cross the line as a race winner here in the Touring Car Championship. Spankmeyer will hold on for second place from Aoyu in third. Lil God, a very brilliant 4th place in his debut. Snanin Bongo will cross the line in 5th. Has he made enough of a gap to destroy it in 6th? It looks like he possibly has. It doesn't look like... Nope. Oh no, there is the swap. Destroyer does get 5th place from Snanin Bongo. Stotts will come across the line in 7th. Kovkar is in 8th. It is 9th for Porschman, and Green Gaming will round out the top 10. Whew! I don't know about you, but what an opening race to this season.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I just can't help but look forward to Brno over in the Czech Republic next week. Pot the Brown gets his first career win in the Flux Touring Car Championship. I think it was obvious he was losing the tires there, maybe a little at the end, but a brilliant drive. He hung out there in second, waited it out, made his move, and really of those top 3, they were all the same speed. He was the one that made the fewest mistakes, and that is why he's the winner. But congratulations to all the guys on the podium. Great race, guys.
Fantastic job by them all. And of course, if you want to keep up to date with everything Flux Motorsport related, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and the bell notification icon so that you get notified of all the latest videos as they appear here on YouTube. And don't forget to drop us a like on this video as well. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at Flux Motorsport. Don't forget, you can also join our Discord server to keep up to date with everything going on here at Flux Motorsport. And if you want to be part of our championships, all you need to do is head over to our website, fluxmotorsport.com. You can sign up there and join in. Just a quick little evaluation drive, and once you've cleared that, you can join any of our championships. Plenty of other race events to be part of as well. Carnin, you know about those?
Oh, absolutely. We've got the Flux American Tour will kick off the 5th season of Flux competition this weekend. Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. Saturday morning UK, the Indy cars will be on the high-banked ovals of Daytona, which is, we like to call it the wildest ride in motorsports, 240 miles an hour or so around there. And then on Saturday night, the Flux American Sports Car Championships kick off as we have the GTE and the LMP2 classes back to back. That's at 7 p.m. Eastern, midnight in the UK. And let's not forget, 8 p.m. Sunday Australian time. You're going to have to convert that yourselves to UK and the US. But the inaugural race of the Flux V8 Supercars Championship will open up down in Dubai. So we've got a full slate of races this weekend. We've got an exhibition club race tonight at Daytona in the Vintage Indy Roadsters at 8 p.m. Eastern. Hope to see some of you guys there. But I'd just like to say congratulations to Pot the Brown, Spankmeyer, Al Yu, our podium drivers, all of our racers tonight. And first time working with DJ, an absolute pleasure. Total pro.
Thank you, and it's been fun to have you with me as well. As he says, next week here on Flux Motorsport, the Touring Car Championship will head to Brno in the Czech Republic. We'll join you for that. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.